everybody. Welcome back to the season premiere of season 2 of Texas Narcos podcast. Sorry for the little break that we had, guys, but all good things take time to do, and had to spend some time with the family and stuff like that. So I want to welcome y'all back to episode 1 of season 2, and I'm real excited to have a return guest on the show. We got Shaheen Moayed-Pardazi here with us today. Sean, how's it going?
Doing good, man. Thanks for having me back.
Of course. It's always fun talking to you. I think you've got a unique perspective on things, especially considering current events in our world. I know, over the last couple weeks to month, that I would see something on the news about Iran or Israel, whatever, and I'd be like, I got to call Sean to find out what's really going on, So, I appreciate you giving me the inside scoop on all that stuff.
Sure thing.
So, we're here today. We just got done with day 2 of Mules and Martyrs, one of your new classes that you've got going on. And man, let me tell you, like, day 1 was interdiction related. A lot of stuff that I've heard before with you, and then today, oh my gosh, like I felt like I was getting hit in the face by a fire hose, right? Like there's so much stuff that I've never even heard of or thought about when it comes to the culture and just all sorts of stuff. It's crazy.
It is. Well, when it comes to dealing with Middle East, I think a lot of times people don't realize it's not a very simple situation or dynamic that you're dealing with, because you're dealing with history that goes back thousands of years. You're dealing very, very, very complex culture, subcultures, different religions. I mean, when you look at humanity, it started in the Middle East. Right. It's not like the U.S. where it has 250-year, less than 3 centuries of history. You're talking thousands of years in history that, it draws from. Right. Yeah. All the different ethnicities, different religions, different wars, empires. So to dissect that and see where we're at today and how all of the history contributes to any sort of conflicts now, it's like you said, it's kind of like drinking water out of a fire hose, and you try to squeeze that into 8 hours. It really like, you have to be ready. I mean, it's a lot to go through. Exactly.
Yeah. No, it was, it's very eye-opening. A lot of the things we've had conversations about, offline and stuff, like I said, anytime, I hear about this going on in Iran, or they're dropping bombs on a nuke facility, or they're doing this or they're doing that, I'm like, let me call Sean. So is there anything that you want to talk about, give us the inside scoop, the update, what's going on?
Oh, well, I'll start out by saying this. For the people who watch or they're listening, obviously on Spotify or, Apple Podcasts, when you hear Iran, there has to be a distinct separation between the government and the people.
Right.
The people of Iran don't represent the government, and the government of Iran doesn't represent the people.
Makes sense.
When you look at United States, you could say the government somehow represents, because it is a democratic society, so there's a voting system. But when you're talking about somewhere like Iran, sure, it appears, but it's not.
Right.
So when you hear Iran's doing this, you have to be very descriptive as to separate, is the government doing this, or is it the people wanting to do this? So that's first things first. Secondly, Iran wasn't ever a religious state, so to say. It was always somewhat of a secular state. People lived amongst each other, different faiths, different ethnicities, You look at the country itself, there's Baluch, there's Azeris, there's Tajiks, there's Pars, Bakhtiaris, Lurs, all kinds of people. And I can sit there and try to go through and name you every one of them, but as a whole, everyone identified as a unified nationality of Iranian.
Right.
So it wasn't until 1979 where it almost took a different identity.
Right.
Okay. And which kind of catapulted the region into what we're seeing today with the proxy elements and things like that. So for people out in the West, for people, especially in the United States, when you hear Iran's doing this, you have to be kind of careful, because there's a lot of Iranians who live in the United States who don't agree with what's going on.
Right.
Because Iranians don't necessarily have that tribal loyalty, right? Because Iranians don't see themselves as tribal, right? They're more nationalistic, if that makes sense. And I'm trying to kind of simplify it as if you are an American overseas, you look at yourself as an American. You don't look at yourself as, oh, I'm Mexican American, or I'm African American, or I'm, German American, or I'm Indian American, or you know what I'm saying? You're just looking at yourself as an American. You don't look at yourself, say, I'm Catholic American, or I'm Baptist American, or I'm, atheist American. You're just American.
Right.
And that's how most Iranians look at themselves.
Yeah.
So that's first things to get out of the way. Second thing is the government itself doesn't represent how the population of Iran views the West.
Right.
Right. Because before the revolution, Iran was essentially like the Paris of the Middle East.
Yeah.
Just like Beirut was.
Yeah.
Right. So it almost like over a period of 45 years, it went backwards.
Right.
Now
you've mentioned a couple times prior to 1979. So I think we touched on this a little bit the last time you were there, but you actually grew up in Iran.
I did.
And so you were there as a young child prior to the revolution.
Correct.
And then after the revolution. Tell me, what was the difference in like daily life pre-1979 and after the revolution? Like just your day-to-day like operations. You go to school, you do this, you do that prior to, and then after.
So prior to 1979 revolution, when the revolution happened, I was like 6, 7, 8 years old. You're talking about a 2-year transition period.
Mm-hmm.
Prior to that, I mean, it was just like here.
Yeah.
You're talking about do whatever you got to do, Of course, at that age, you're not really involved in politics.
Yeah.
Right. So you're not caring what the parliament's doing and what the government is doing. But as far as being able to go out and do whatever you want, you're free. There's nobody beating down your door and restricting you from having a certain way of talking, or, how you present yourself, how you're doing your dress code and things like that. After 1979 revolution, it was almost like the principal showed up with a paddle and you had to walk a certain way. And the best way I can explain it to cops is like, you went kind of like, college setting to a trooper style police academy where you had to cut your corners and, have your straight the way you walked, shoulders back to kind of give you like a parallel of how operations took place.
Right.
There was somebody always barking down your throat.
So prior to, like, if you were to go to a public swimming pool, there was women in bathing suits, I would assume, right? Like it was,
prior to the revolution? Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And then after that was not allowed?
Yeah, no.
Even for people who weren't Muslim?
Yeah, because it actually took a shape of, we're going to go to the traditional application of religious interpretation of how you're supposed to act, which is supposed to be for modesty purposes. But in any religion, you can take that modesty a little too far.
Yeah.
Right? Where you start forcing it on other people to the point where you become overbearing. And it started out with just words, but then actions. I remember we were at the mall, which you consider a mall, called a bazaar, and they had forced hijabs on women. And at the time I was like, 8 years old. And you remember we had to go to the bazaar, to the shopping area. We call it bazaar. Here you call it a mall or shopping area, right? Shopping center.
Right.
And we would have to get up, you'd get up at 5 o'clock in the morning and you would run down and you would buy fresh bread. right? They would make it fresh, sangak. And, you buy 10 loaves and you would come back home, you have breakfast, nuna paneer and things like that. Well, on the way there, sometimes women would be walking and they would have to have chador and they would have to have their hair covered. And then some of the women would wear like makeup, right? Let's say lipstick. And I seen it with my own eyes where the women would have bright lipstick on, like very bright, like to the point where it was like very, very noticeable. And then you had other women who were very strict. Some of them, part of the government, would come up and say, hey, you're not supposed to have that. And let me wipe it off for you. And they would put razor blades inside of cotton balls and they would slice the lips.
Oh, wow.
As they were supposedly wiping them up. And it was like, wow. So that's how it was forced, where they would make an example out of that person like that. So the word would get around, and guess what? Now the women would be like, whoa. So that's the kind of enforcement that took place.
That's crazy.
So it was kind of like, okay, don't wear it. You're not being modest. But then as time went along, it became almost so aggressive.
Mm-hmm.
And then as time went along, it just became more and more aggressive, because naturally, when you have people living in a certain lifestyle, they're going to rebel.
Yeah.
They may not rebel totally. They may test the waters, so to say. Right. Well, I'm going to wear a little more lipstick, see what happens. Mm-hmm. And then they do it once or twice to get away with it. And then they get comfortable with it. And then the fourth time they do it, they just run across somebody and that person's going to take action. And I'm just kind of showing you like the nature of how things were taking place. Right. Yeah. And it may have been in certain areas that were more strict than in other areas.
Yeah.
Right. And even to this day, it's like that. You may be in certain parts of the country where, they're more strict than other parts of the country. It depends on the size, depending on, who's in charge.
Yeah.
Right. If you're more affluent, you have more money, you can pay off the people who do that, and then they'll leave you alone.
Right.
One of those deals.
So what was school like before and after? Was there a change like in your school, like your day-to-day schooling? Did the schools change?
Before that, it was just normal school. You would go to school, 7:30, I can't remember, 7:30, 8 o'clock till, 3, 4 o'clock, whatever. After that, I remember going to school, 7:30, 8 o'clock, and then we would go home at 11, I believe, if I remember correct. It was around 11. It depends on when the lunch prayer was. Iran is a majority Shia state. Okay, so when you're looking at Islam, Sunnis pray 5 times a day. Shias pray 3 times. It's to combine 2 of the prayers together. So basically, you pray in the morning. When you wake up, you pray at lunchtime, and then you pray in the evening. So for that lunchtime where you combine the 2, we would leave at like 11 o'clock. That would give time for you to go home, eat, do your prayers with your family, and then you would come back to school at 2 o'clock, and sometimes go till 5 or 6 o'clock. And then you would get out enough time to go back for dinner and then do the afternoon prayer. So it was kind of like split up into 2.
Yeah.
As you got old enough, now, when we're talking about in the school system, it's when they and this had to do with where you went to school too, because depending on if you're in an affluent area, the system was a little bit different. Okay. If you were in an area that wasn't affluent, then you may have had different types of training where the indoctrination might have taken a little bit more. And when I talk about indoctrination, let's say you're talking about a simple mathematical problem, right? We're talking about, let's say we're going to say 2 plus 2 plus 2 equals 6. But then the next problem is 4 minus 2 equals 2. Somehow within that, some sort of reference to geopolitics would be embedded in it.
Wow.
Okay. An example would that be 2 Jews have 2 eggs, 2 Muslims have 2 eggs, and those 2 Muslims are Arab Muslims, and then 2 of them are Persian Muslims. So therefore there was a conflict, and 4 Muslims together killed the 2 Jews, and then now they got their eggs. So how many eggs do the Muslims have?
Wow.
So it's almost like you started embedding certain things to kind of condition you to hate towards Jews. Right.
Wow.
So a 7-year-old
Mm-hmm.
is learning mathematics, but at the same time, indirectly, is being indoctrinated to dehumanize the Jews.
Right.
Because now in the mathematical equation, now I'm not saying this was in every single school, right? It depends on wherever it's at.
Yeah.
If you look at how a school system runs here, like we're in Texas now, and how, let's say, Buda School District operates,
Mm-hmm.
the teachers, the way they teach, may not necessarily equate to how Houston Independent School District operates. Right? They may have certain curriculum, but what happens in that classroom and how it's presented is going to change based on the teacher, because that teacher may be from a small town, and she's going to inject her own interpretation and her own culture into it, right? So, however, here you have like the Texas education system, so they have, certain books, but then that's also left to the school board.
Right.
You have a system. Over there, the system is run by the government.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
And the government is a extreme government.
Pretty much, yeah. Now, certain areas didn't get it as much, especially affluent areas, because those people were able to because they had money, right? If you take that like a hybrid of a system like I was just explaining to you, where things can get manipulated, but then add a little bit of a culture of how things work in Mexico, where you can bribe people and not have to deal with certain things, right? Even though there's corruption to that extent and maybe religious corruption involved, but you can actually buy yourself out of it somehow.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's like a hybrid. So you can have someone from a rural area in Iran tell you this is what they learn in school, but then someone from an affluent area in Tehran say, well, I never experienced that. Well, because he was from somewhere else. It's just like someone who went to school in Beverly Hills won't have the same experience as someone who went to school in Jasper, Texas.
Right.
Right?
Right.
Sure, they're both in America, but we're talking about different demographics.
Yeah. Yeah, makes sense.
Similar, right?
Yeah. So, did y'all do any military training, or did y'all do y'all have to march and do stuff like that as you got older?
It started out literally the first year. I mean, we would, I tell you, 6, 7, 8, 9, all the way up to, 12th grade, whatever. You show up in the morning. You know how over here you have Pledge Allegiance, right? Everybody stand up in the classroom. Well, over there we had courtyards, right? So at the courtyard, you would stand there with the Iranian flag and you had to salute it. And then in the process of saying so-called the national anthem, and then you would basically death to America, death to Israel, death to the Jews. It was part of the so-called equivalent to the national anthem that you say every morning before you even go to class.
Wow.
So when you explain that here, that's the only parallel that I can draw. So imagine a 7-year-old going to school here and they grow up saying the national anthem. By the time they're 15 years old, it becomes part of the culture, right?
Yeah.
So you go in and you're saying so-called the national anthem, right? If that's what you want to call it, but embedded in it is hatred for the West, death to America.
Yeah.
At 6 years old, right? At 8 years old, instead of PE, you're taken out to the field to learn how to, disassemble mines.
Wow.
And use a knife to take mines apart. Because at that time, Saddam had kind of decided he was going to go to a war and try to take over land and things like that. So you had that dynamic going. And depending on where you went to school, you would go out to fields and learn how to take apart guns. You're doing mines. You're basically being prepared to be sent to war.
Right.
Right.
Like a child soldier.
Pretty much. Yeah.
Wow.
And, everyone had some sort of experience with that. Again, depending on where you were at. Right. Now that also was affected by what family you were from and how you got treated. Also, where you went to school. If you were in a big, huge metropolitan area, some areas didn't have to experience that as much. Now, that had to do with the military training. when it comes to the indoctrination part of it, of the psychological, that was in pretty much every school because it became part of the curriculum.
Wow.
You know, so when people talking about child indoctrination psychologically and ideologically, that was pretty much all across the board.
Yeah.
Child soldier depended on where you were at and how embedded those people were in that community.
So basically the rich kids weren't out there in minefields.
Depends.
Yeah.
Depends if there were rich kids that were pro this type of, you know, but typically those rich kids would be part of the movement, but they would be kind of held back in more of a supervisory position. So they wouldn't be out like in the minefield. They would be kind of like, oh, we'll make sure everybody else is ready to go.
I got you.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It really depended on your status.
Right.
You know,
Grooming you to be a boss instead of a foot soldier.
Pretty much, yeah.
That's crazy. So you go through all that, and then at some point in time, you end up coming back to America.
I did.
And just so, you know, I think we kind of skipped over this. I mean, you were born in San Antonio.
Yeah, that's right.
And you moved to Iran when you were
like 3-4 months old. Yeah.
So you live in Iran pre-revolution. Everything's great. It's a great life. The revolution happens. It sucks now, right? You're out there with a knife digging through a minefield, right? And I'm sure your mom is concerned about your safety at some point.
Of course. Yeah.
And so you want to tell us how you ended up getting over here?
So because I was born here, because my parents came here in the late 60s, I was born here, so obviously I'm a U.S. citizen, right? So I have to apply for my passport through the Swiss embassy in Tehran, because the U.S. didn't have an embassy, obviously, because, 1979, they took all the Americans hostage.
Yeah.
You know, so imagine the United States, the people of the United States, the first time they hear about Iran is 400 and something hostages being held in Tehran.
Right.
Right. So that's going to play a role later on when I come to the United States and I move to Alabama, of all places. Okay. Talk about a culture shock. So anyway, yeah, so I go to the Swiss embassy with my mom and we have to apply for my passport. Through the Swiss embassy. And they send it to DC, get the passport made, they send it to Ankara, Turkey. And I fly to Turkey, pick up my passport. My dad had been here. I see my dad. I hadn't seen him for years.
Right.
And then we end up in Atlanta airport. So, 1987, landed in Atlanta International Airport. First time. Like, I left when I was an infant.
Right.
So I'm literally like Coming to America, the movie. Right. The Persian version.
Yeah. So how was that flight?
Oh, yeah. So 15 years old on a KLM Dutch airline flight. And, oh my God, this is not going to sound good, but if anybody's listening or watching, you know what's going on at 15 years old. And I'm in an environment where, like, this revolution happens at, when I'm like 7 years old. Right. And by 15, there's a lot of changes happening in your body.
And you've never seen a woman other than your family that's not covered up in a suit.
Right, yeah, because if you go outside, everybody's like dressed up, they got hijabs on or they got chador or, when you say chador, that's something Farsi, but people here call it burqa, similar, from head to toe.
Eyes.
Yeah, well, some depend. They're covering the eyes, that's some. Most of the time, no. It was usually just, you could see the face, but everything else was covered.
Yeah.
Usually black.
Sure.
But, so I have a different name for it, but I don't want to say it on here because your comments are going to go crazy.
So needless to say, it was an eye-opening experience.
Yes,
being on a airplane
for a 15-year-old
dude.
Yeah, 15-year-old dude sitting in row 34 aisle seat. I remember because my dad was sitting up front somewhere, and I was in the aisle seat by myself. Didn't know how to speak English. My mom taught me a few things before I left, which was hello.
Yeah,
it was actually hello. And then, how are you? And then, very well, thank you. And then I am thirsty. I would like a Coke, please. And then where is the restroom? And chicken.
And chicken.
And chicken.
And you didn't know that there was a restroom on the airplanes.
Right, yeah. So
So how long is this flight again?
from Amsterdam, it was about a 7.5 hour flight.
And you've already asked for Coke and chicken.
And the flight attendant would come, and I'm by myself, dude. I'm sitting around. Nobody speaks Farsi. Flight attendant, blonde hair, blue eyes. I'm like, dude, I'm 15 years old, and I'm just like,
yeah,
right. Oh, what do you think I'm thinking?
Yeah,
right. And I'm just like, it's like Wayne's World. Swing every time it goes by, right? And every time she says something, I don't know what's going on. And every time I'd be like, Coke, please. So every time she come by, which was every maybe hour,
yeah.
I'd get a Coke.
Yeah.
And I just drink it. So I'm drinking all these Cokes. Never got up to go to the bathroom. So guess what? We land. I come out of the plane like a little 4-year-old. I'm holding on to myself. I'm like, whoa, like floaters, like literally. There's like floating. So I tell my dad, and the Farsi man, Baba, khoda mishasha. It's like, I want to feel myself, right? He points at a door. Right into the door I go. I open that first stall. I look. And I'm holding on to myself. Like, you ever see a 4-year-old about to piss themselves?
Yeah.
I'm holding on to myself. I'm like, shit. Because I see the seat and it's filled up with water. And I'm thinking it's backed up. And I'm like, crap, I can't pee in that one. Right? Because, I mean, first of all, I'm in shock because I see a seat that's kind of like sitting above the ground. Because where I come from, we have holes in the ground.
Oh, okay.
Right? It's got 2 steps you sit on, you squat.
Yeah.
I go to the second one, it's the same thing. By the time I get to the third one, you ever had to pee and you have this anticipation and it's about to come out, like it's about to dribble out. You know what I'm talking about? So by the third time, it's just like, I just let it go. And I go for it feels like 15 minutes, right? By the time I'm done, all of a sudden, it flushes on its own and it scares the shit out of me. I literally think somebody's watching me at this point, right? So I'm looking around and I'm like, oh my God, somebody's watching me. It wasn't until later where I realized it was like automatic toilet flushers. Like, we don't have that kind of shit where I come from, right?
And the automatic toilets, automatic sinks.
Oh.
The hand dryers. Like,
I walk outside, I go to the sink. There's a lady putting on makeup.
Because you went to the wrong bathroom.
I went into the wrong bathroom. It doesn't dawn on me because what I hear is America is the land of the free.
Yeah.
There's no women in the back of the bus.
Right.
Everybody shares everything. Everybody's equal. So I'm thinking, well, shit, there's nothing wrong with a woman being in here with the man. I mean, shit, everybody shares everything. So I'm just like, hello. And she goes, hi. And I'm like, how are you? Go to the sink. There's no handles on the sink. So I'm standing there going, what in the hell? Where's the handles? How do you get the water? So I look down. I'm like, well, maybe they got pedals. No pedals. Right? So I get closer and somehow I activate the sensor and it goes off. So I'm like excited.
Yeah.
I'm playing with the water. So I'm having this like literally like learning this whole, oh my gosh, all this stuff, right? Finally wash my hand. There's no paper towels or rags or how do I wipe my hand?
Mm-hmm.
That's when I discovered the automatic air dryer. Because how I activated that thing is when I saw that little silver thing coming out, I thought there was something inside that hole, so I stuck my head underneath there to look up in it, and it just blew it blew so hard into my eyeball.
That's hilarious.
But needless to say, I got a crash course into the technology that was existing at the time at the Atlanta International Airport. And then I walk outside, and my dad is standing outside, and I said, Baba. And he turns around and he looks at me and he goes, eh? Like in Farsi, he's like, what are you doing in there? And I was like, well, I went to the bathroom. And he says, you went into the women's bathroom. And I was like, well, how am I supposed to know I went to the women's bathroom? He said, the sign. And I'm like, well, I don't know how to read English. He said, there's a mark. And I was like, it's a triangle with 2 sticks. How the hell am I supposed to know? And he goes, that's a woman. And I was like, no. I'm used to a penguin. That's not a penguin. That's a triangle. It's a big triangle. Where I come from, I got no leg. Oh, my God. Yeah.
That's funny.
Because when you're wearing that big thing,
Yeah.
there's no legs.
Oh,
So he's not realizing we didn't have those kind of symbols over there,
yeah.
right? Besides, I'm holding on to myself. I just see a door and I'm going into the door, right?
Yeah.
Anyway,
That's funny.
yeah. So yeah, culture shock. And then my first American meal was a Junior Whopper with cheese from
Oh.
Burger King.
Yeah.
And
How was
I
that?
still take statins because of it.
Nice.
Yes.
It's still holding on to you.
Still holding on. I was like the
Funny.
best. I mean, back then, but you got to give it to him though. Back then, Burger King actually had real meat,
Right.
right? It's not. I don't know what it is now.
Yeah.
Back then, actually had real meat.
So you'll get out of the airport, you go home. Which home is Alabama?
Coleman, Alabama.
Wow. I've heard stories about that place.
Yes.
So you what time of the year is this?
Oh, I came last week of January, 1987.
Okay. So
Yeah, like first part of 1987. So,
So-
come December.
yeah.
Yeah. I've been here like 10 months. You're talking about the. We're
Yeah.
talking about the Christmas.
Yeah, you go to
parade.
Christmas parade, right?
Oh my God! Yeah, my first Christmas parade in Coleman, Alabama. That's when I met the White Knights.
Yeah.
Yes. I had no clue who they were because we didn't have the clan over there,
Right.
right? When we say clan in the Middle East, we mean like a family,
Right.
like the clan, right?
Right.
I had no clue. I'm at the parade, and first thing I see is the drum majors. That's what got me to get into the band because I saw
Right.
the marching band.
Yeah.
I was like, wow, look at all these people
Yeah.
all dressed up with the hats and stuff, marching, playing. Then, of course, was the old dudes that came behind them in them little bitty cars with the red fez on their head. And I'm
Yeah.
like, hey, these guys are African because it's the Moroccans that wear the red fez.
Right.
And I was like, oh, come to find out later, they were the Shriners.
Yeah.
Right. I still never figured out, like at the time, I was like, why are they driving these little bitty cars?
Yeah.
Right. I didn't realize that was part of it. Right. And then here comes a few on behind. Here comes some people on the horses
Mm-hmm.
dressed in all white. I'm like, who are these people? Shh, they don't like you. I'm like, why would they not like me? I don't even know who they are. Right? Shh, they don't like you. Why? Well, it was the clan. There was in the
In the parade.
In the parade.
Wow.
Which, that was back in the day.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Wow. So
I haven't been to Coleman since.
no.
Yeah.
No. Haven't been back.
Yeah. I don't think they're. I don't know.
You don't think the Christmas parade
You
is
got to think
related?
about it. I've never had a problem with them. You know what I'm saying? Never have. You hear stories and stuff.
Yeah.
But you got to understand, and people who listen to this, watch this, I come from a whole different world. Not only do I have a culture shock coming into a whole different country, a whole different language, now I'm having to learn about the history of here.
Right.
Right? So it's almost like, wow.
Yeah.
There's a whole lot of history here that
Yeah.
I have to familiarize myself with. At the same time, trying to learn English.
Right. So at some point you end up in Houston, right?
I did.
And you want to tell us a story about how you ended up in law enforcement because, you spent what, 25, 26, 27 years in law enforcement?
And I did, yeah. So I was working at a, when you're from the Middle East and you first come over here, you kind of stick with Middle Eastern people,
Mhm.
right? So my relatives knew these other Middle Eastern folks that own a restaurant in Houston. So I started working for them. And I lived in the apartments out in West Houston. And my next door neighbor was a Houston PD, right? And he actually, and I was young, dude. I was in high school, had my own apartment. So that was like the party pad to go to.
I can imagine.
You know what I'm saying? Like 17 years old, I had my own apartment. Like in high school, I
Yeah.
had my own apartment because I worked and went to school full time. and worked full time at night. So I was like the party pad. And my next door neighbor was a HPD officer.
Yeah.
Right? He was on the gang task force, and he invited me to go ride with him. I went and rode with him, and I was like, oh my God, you get paid to go around and do this stuff?
Yeah.
Right? So that's what got me interested in law enforcement. But at the same time, law enforcement here in comparison to law enforcement overseas is an entirely different ballgame.
Yeah.
Right? Law enforcement overseas is not considered a very professional job, so to say.
Right. It's not very honorable.
It's just not very professional because it puts you at the lower grade.
Mm.
I wouldn't say honorable, less educated. You're not looked at as very important.
So what did your mom think about you becoming a cop?
Shit. She wanted to tell everybody that I was in perpetual college.
Oh, well, that's
forever. Like, I was like 45 years old and I was still seeking my PhD.
Nice.
Right? By that time, hell, the college had retired and all the professors were gone.
Nice. That's funny.
No. And a lot of it has to do when you come from a family of a lot of education,
Mm-hmm.
there's an expectation in the Middle Eastern culture that you continue that particular path, But I think over a period of time, especially more Middle Easterners that come over here and get into different fields, they kind of start understanding. And it's hard for people overseas to understand that law enforcement here
Mm-hmm.
is not the same as law enforcement there.
Right.
Here, it is somewhat of a professional career, depending on where you're at.
Right.
Right? Because we do have law enforcement, depending on rural, areas where the guys are making like $15 an hour.
Yeah.
Right? To a law enforcement community, $15 an hour is not a professional job.
Right.
Right? It doesn't matter that it's working for a city and you got insurance and stuff like that, because success is gauged based on education and how much money you're making.
Yeah.
Right? Because as we're talking about today in the class, your importance in life is gauged based on responsibility of being the man of the house and providing for family.
Mm-hmm.
Well, $15 an hour, you can't even provide for yourself.
Right.
Right? Especially in today's society.
Yeah.
So you can't have a wife and kids. And Middle Eastern communities is one of those communities where it emphasizes on having a larger family.
Yeah.
Right? So that's kind of one of those deals where there's a lot of responsibility, and that plays a huge role in it.
Yeah. So you get the bug for being a cop after you go on a ride out. At some point in time, you go to the academy and you go and you get your first job as a cop.
Hmm.
And then during that time, was there a certain traffic stop or a certain incident that kind of got you going down the interdiction path? I mean, because that's, the majority, all of your career was spent on interdiction, catching smugglers and that kind of stuff. So what got you started on that path?
So what got me started on it was an ass whipping that I got.
Okay.
I'll tell you the story. I was working in this little bitty old town in central Texas called Hearn.
Okay.
Hearn, Texas, right? They call it the crossroads of Texas. It's where Highway 6 and Highway 79 come together. And I lived in the southwest corner. I remember it was on Anderson Street. 701 Anderson.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I rented a house. And I worked 9 p.m. to 7 a.m. So I come out at 9 o'clock. I had to take home car. I made a whole $8.92 an hour.
Nice.
No, wait. Yeah. No. Yeah, I'd got a raise. So I made $8.92 an hour. Maybe it was $9.13 an hour. I don't know. It was that, shit, that was good money back then.
Yeah.
Right? People are watching this. Some Middle Eastern people are watching this like, this guy worked like a slave. Anyway. This was in like 1995. So anyway, I come out, I've been on 6 months,
Mm-hmm.
maybe 9 months, if I remember right. I hadn't been a cop that long. I was young, like 21, 22 years old. you know, that age when you become a cop and you're going to save the world.
Yeah.
Right. So I come out and, you know, I was in good shape. I used to work out, run like 5 miles a day. That's why I have no cartilage or meniscus left in my knees.
And you were taller back then too, right?
I was taller, right? Yeah. Now I'm the same height as I was when I was 13 years old. I don't know what happened, but thank God they made electric seats in the patrol cars. So anyway,
That's funny.
so I come out and I come out the main drag and I get to turn on 79. Excuse me. And there's a gas station and there's an alleyway between the gas station and this fried chicken place. And there's a dude standing in the alleyway and he's got a ski mask over his head.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And it's in the middle of summer. And I'm like, what in the hell is this dude doing? And he's laying up against the wall and he's smoking a cigarette. And I'm like, surely this dude ain't about to rob the bank. Rob the gas station. So be popping around the corner. I'm driving a 94 Crown Victoria, you know, them long nose, and had a big old custom radar sticking on top of the dashboard, which totally blocked my view. So I had to look around like this, right? Yeah. But I managed. I ran over a few curves on the way and blew a couple of tires every once in a while, but shit. You know, what can you do? They didn't have electric seats. It was the handle you pulled forward, you know. Other than went to Houston and got a couple of
phone books.
Phone books to put in there. You know? That would make it uncomfortable. But anyway, so I pull up in there. I jump out of the car. Right, I'm fixing to stop this damn robbery. I jumped up in there and I go, "Hey man, what are you doing?" And he's smoking a cigarette, pulls it out, flicks it at me. "Fuck you." And I grab his hand. I'm fixing to take him down. He's taller than me too. But by God, I'm solely by myself gonna win this war. By God, there's a new sheriff. Plus, I'm from the Middle East. Don't you dare try this shit. Right? Unbeknownst to me, there's about 15, 20 more of them high school kids around back.
Nice.
They all come around the corner. And what we know as little midget me is now being carried across the parking lot. as they're beating me up, right? Dragging me on the ground. You know, you had the radio and it came around and I plugged it into my shirt right here. Uh-huh. They done snatched that thing out. And it was back then when you had those radios, you know, they weren't like really strong like they are now. So, like one little tug and it would come apart. So, of course, when the little hook's hooked up to your radio and the wire snatches, your radio doesn't work anymore. Correct? And because your radio doesn't work anymore, it doesn't matter if you key up even the main radio, you can't get out. Right? It'll key up, but there's no sound because the sound is supposed to come from the microphone, but the microphone is not connected. So all you hear is the squelch, right? This is before digital radios. Meanwhile, handcuffs are coming out. They're taking everything out. They took my SL20, and I don't know if you know what a SL20 is. Those old metal ones, right? And I'm getting beat upside the head. They done drug me into the Sonic next door. I'm between two cars. I'm getting beat. I'm like half in, half out. I have no clue what the hell's going on. All I know is somebody's tugging on my gun, and I'm holding on to my gun, right? Because I'm like, hell no, you ain't taking that one. And the reason is, I pay for that shit myself. I pay for my vest. I pay for my belt. I pay for my gun. Because even though I made that like $8.92 an hour, I still had to pay the shit myself. That was like $1,200 worth of shit I paid for. Yeah. Right? This ain't happening. You ain't taking my shit. Right? Luckily, there was a record driver across the street. And I think it was a Valero station or something, or maybe a BP. He was a volunteer firefighter. I can hear the radio. He keys up and he's on the PD channel and he's saying, "Hey, PD, send 16 some help. He getting his ass whipped at the Sonic." Right? Well, they're trying to call me on the radio. I can hear them. I can't answer back. Plus, I'm on halfway like, Tweety Bird flying around and shit around my head. Right? All I know is I'm stuck between two cars. I look up at one time and there's this big old lady. She eating a damn burger. She looking down at me like she's having a freaking like episode of Cops playing live outside of her window.
Wow.
Like nobody's. I'm like, what the hell, man? Like, where y'all been? I don't know if they're just scared to get up. Anyway, luckily he pulls up. He honks the horn. He's got his little yellow lights going. He gets out. He drags me out, holds me up. I pass out. A little while later, I come to. I'm in the back of an ambulance. I got this neck thing around my neck, and they got the oxygen on my head. I got like blood all over because they like busted my nose. There's all kinds of shit going on. And I notice that I have like all these lines attached to me, right? And the first thing comes to my mind is, where's my vest? I go, where's my vest? They're like, we cut it off. Oh, I was so pissed because they cut my vest. Remember, I paid for it.
Yeah.
It was like $640.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, where's my vest? They're like, we cut it. I'm like, no. Where's my gun? The sergeant's got it. Oh, thank God. Because I was wondering if they took my gun. But anyway, ended up in the hospital, had like a subdural hematoma. So I end up on a light duty for like 3 months because I have this bad concussion and all this stuff. So I end up going to a lot of training.
Right.
Yeah. So after I get like this huge issue with medicine, so I go on light duty for like months, right? So my academy coordinator, who was my chief now, says, hey, why don't you just go to a bunch of training, right? So I'm going finding free training all over the place. I end up going to Houston Police Academy and go to this training by, it was an epic training. And it was the guy who was teaching it was like a supervisor, like a watch commander from Falfurrias checkpoint. And it's like a 3-day interdiction class. And he shows like an image of like 4,000 pounds of weed.
Yeah.
That they got out of like this U-Haul truck, and I can't remember what it was. And I'm just sitting there looking at this big screen, and it's like a big screen like this, and it's this huge amount of dope. And I'm thinking to myself, oh my God, look at all that drugs. Because up until this point, yeah, I'm getting drugs, but it's like a roach, right? Or like a little dime bag, right? Or a little quarter bag. And nickel bag, like usually nickel bag, you know what I'm saying? So like when you get a nickel bag, you're like, ooh, you know, I'm like winning the war on drugs, right? But then I see this like 4,000 pounds, and I'm thinking to myself, there's shit like that driving on the road, right? Yeah. So I'm just like, oh, I got to get me some of that, right? I got to get me some of that. So I get bit by the bug that when I get back to work, I'm going to go out and I'm going to try to hit one of these. And I go back to work next week, right? This is my last week being off. I go back to work on a Wednesday. Usually what they wanted us to do when we came out, get some tickets wrote. It's a small town, right? Show some productivity. So I used to come out in the first hour. I would just, because everybody was traveling that early hour, because I worked 5 p.m. to 3 a.m. And I would write out a few tickets, and then the rest of the time I could sit there and kind of go hunting, so to say.
Yeah.
So I come out 5 o'clock. I'm out on the road like 5:07, 5:11. I can't remember. First 10 minutes. I check a guy doing like 70 and a 55. I remember because speed limit used to be 70, turned into 55. And I go stop him. And it's a rental car out of Oklahoma. One thing leads to another. I end up with 5 kilos of coke out of a spare tire. That's like the first load.
Nice.
Right? Like first traffic stop after the school.
Yeah.
And I'm like, holy shit. Right? I still got the Polaroid of that. That's how long ago it was, like we had Polaroids.
Yeah.
Right?
Wow.
And it was so long ago I had hair. And I had a mustache. I looked like Pancho Villa.
That's funny.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So my sergeant was a Mexican dude. His name was Jason. I look more Mexican than he did.
That's funny.
You know what I'm saying? So anyway, this is a long time ago. So
That's
that was
awesome.
like 5 keys of coke. And then funny thing is, that's not only my first seizure. Not only is that my first seizure, it's also a seizure that ends up with a controlled delivery to Oklahoma City with DEA.
Nice.
And taking out the main dude in Oklahoma City with the helicopters, with the Marshal Service and the SWAT team. So I'm like, in a matter of 12 hours,
Wow.
like getting the full meal deal from start of a traffic stop all the way into a full freaking search warrant, rappelling down a helicopter out in the middle of nowhere. Not me. I'm not rappelling down. I'm in like the surveillance line. I'm like going, holy shit, this is like the movies, right?
That's cool. They let you tag along with
Right.
that.
Oh, after we go into one class, bro.
Wow.
I ain't even been on a year. I'm like, you know what? Fuck this. I don't give a shit if somebody's dogs are put in the tree. I don't care about anybody's lawn chair getting stolen. All I want to do is catch smugglers.
So you go from getting 5 kilos on your very first load, and how does that transition to 25 years of pulling kilos and the Benjamins out of cars all over the country?
I know, like it's all. The best way to explain it is kind of like a crackhead. You get that first high, and you're like constantly chasing that high.
Yeah.
Like I've never been a crackhead, but that's the only thing I can, contribute it to, or kind of like draw a parallel, if that makes any sense, right? So you get that first burst of energy, and you're like, whoa, right? So the next time you want to get a bigger burst of energy, right? And you're constantly chasing that next challenge, right? And it's like, you get 4 kilos, you're like, but you're like, it was 4 kilos, good, I got the dope off the road, I got a bad guy, but then you're like, I gotta get 6, right? So now you're shooting higher. Then it becomes the challenge of, how do I get 6? Does that mean I have to look further? Did I miss it? So you're trying to constantly like elevate yourself into the next level, right? And this is what got me into understanding the deeper understanding of how smuggling operations work, and the different tier levels, and how you target like the larger operations. Does that make sense? It's and if you explain, the best way to explain it is kind of like, okay, if I want to be a deer hunter, right, I can learn how to shoot and go out and shoot Bambi. But if I want to shoot elk, or if I want to go shoot big game, I have to position myself in a terrain that's going to allow me to not only shoot bigger game, but I also have to be a good shot, which means I have to understand how they move. I have to understand.
Yeah, it makes sense.
So this kind of gives you that insight on learning the trade craft. And then that's why I ended up moving to different states, because I was like, hey, the terrain is better here.
Yeah.
Right? So that's how I ended up in like the different states, southern states.
Right.
So
where were you? I understand you've been a cop since what, the mid 90s, right? And then so you were a cop during 2001, whenever the attacks happened on 9/11. And did the people that you worked with, did they know that you were Middle Eastern, or did they think that you were Hispanic? Or
most of the time, unless they were like on my shift when I worked patrol. Now you got to think, I quit working patrol like in the early 2000s, like probably within a year or two of 9/11. Prior to that, not very many people knew. Most people I worked with around patrol, like, I was like patrol shift with kind of, I wouldn't say bigger departments, but they usually were like, oh, he's Middle Eastern, but really it wasn't no big deal. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't no big deal, and I didn't like bust out at 12 o'clock in the afternoon with a prayer rug. Right. You know what I'm saying? In the middle of shift on Texas Avenue, because, I had to pray or something like that. So it I never brought attention to myself, so nobody really paid attention to it, right? Yeah, it makes sense. So that was one of the deals. So, but afterwards, people started asking, hey, what's going on? It's more like that. But I did kind of started noticing where I started getting a little bit of kind of like that sideways look sometimes. Which you really can't blame people, because obviously what happens 9/11 scared the shit out of everybody. Right. And fear leads to it's fear. You start being suspicious of everybody, and then you add the fact that if you don't know anything about culture and you don't know anything about religion, and the first glimpse of it you get collectively as the Western society is, number one, the 1979 revolution of taking all the hostages. And number two is 1993 attempted bombing of the Twin Towers. Right. And then number three is the 2001 Twin Towers
9/11. So you have 3 incidents,
Yeah.
right, that affect Americans, you know, directly
Yeah.
with, you know, mass implication, so to say.
Yeah.
So when you're talking about that type of exposure, there's no positivity that comes from that. So
Right.
you can pretty much expect people to just have this heightened level of fear, correct? And when
Yeah.
they have this heightened level of fear, they're going to be suspicious.
Right.
Then you add the fact that they don't have a model of comparison, so the ignorance heightens that level,
Right.
right? Then you add the fact that you had law enforcement, right? And then most of the areas that I worked at were very rural.
Yeah.
Bigger cities probably wasn't that bad. I mean, it was bad, but it wasn't as bad as it was being in rural areas because it enhanced the effects, right?
Yeah.
So, and I wasn't worried about general public because I didn't really deal with the general public, you
Yeah.
know. But to have it come from your internal in
Yeah.
some areas, and I'll have to say this, it wasn't like you're talking 27 years, I have to deal with it 3 times.
Right.
You know, so it's not like there was like a systemic problem.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You know, it's just, who is it? Now, did I have people joking around? Sure. But most people knew, you know, hey, what's up, you little, you know, our little staff terrorist, you know, that's different. You,
Yeah.
you know somebody, you're joking around, that's different. You know what I'm saying? But when you have an administrator somewhere saying, we don't need his kind running our country with a gun strapped to their waist,
Yeah.
that's a little bit different than just
Yeah.
somebody who you're hanging around with and you're eating dinner and you're going to parties with, you know, birthday parties. They're
Yeah.
coming to your house, you're going to their house, you're having barbecue,
Yeah.
calling you, what's up, my little terrorist? That's different. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So there's a line you got to draw. So I had to deal with that, and it was over the years. You know, then you had the wars going on with Afghanistan, Iraq, and then, you know, when my last wife passed away in 2018, you know, she was white, blonde hair, blue eyes, and her grave has got an Islamic symbol on it, and you have an entire community, including people I work with, who decided that, wow. You know, again, ignorance,
Yeah.
right?
You had issues with them messing with her grave?
Oh yeah, yeah. People have
Wow.
followed me on social media. Remember, I had to put cameras out there on her grave because, you know, my son at the time was 2.5 years old, and the tradition we have is every Thursday night we go to the grave, and we have this thing called Dua Kumail, right? So you kind of do that. You know, it's plus he's 2.5 years old. I mean, Mama just died, right? And so I take him out there because, I mean, he's 2.5 years old. You know, he leaves, Mama goes to the hospital. When he comes back home, Mama's gone. So he's Mama, right? So I'm having to kind of ease him into it. It's just me and him. I have no family.
Right.
So I'll be taking up there. I'm trying to kind of ease him into it to kind of make him understand. So we take toys out, and she's got a big slab, and we take toys out. So we have like picnics 3-4 times a week.
Yeah.
So he leaves his toys out there. We put little toys, little notes. After a couple of weeks, after her headstone hits the ground, we go out there, lights are broken. Toys are smashed.
Wow.
I'm like, what in the hell's going on? And there's other people that have stuff out there, and it's hers that's getting smashed. So then I put more lights out. They get smashed.
Wow.
We take more toys out there. They get smashed. And I'm like, why is hers getting the only one? And then it dawns on me, every time I was going out there, because I had so many people follow me on social media because they were checking on her, because I have family like all over the place. So I had people follow me from Australia, from Germany, you know, thousands of people.
Right.
And they were checking to see how he's doing. So I would post when we would check out with pictures, but didn't realize that other people are seeing this. So when I was putting something new, the next day they were going to destroy it. So I ended up having to put cameras out there. I even had to get a contractor to go out there and put a pipe into the ground 4 feet. I had to get permission from the cemetery to have a truck taken out there with a hole where they could drill a hole 6 feet in to put an actual 6-inch pipe painted white like a street sign, put it up with solar lights to light it up, because the 3 sets of lights that I put out there, they destroyed. and had to put game cams, the cellular game cams that would do audio video just to keep track of it. And even with that, somebody would walk out there, put their hand on top of the camera so it wouldn't pick it, and then they would still destroy it, and then they would remove their hand or they'll put a rag on top of it so you couldn't see it. So by the time I would get the alert and I would jump in my car and go out there, it was already destroyed.
Wow.
And it's funny because I moved out of there June 10th of 2020, and it immediately stopped.
Wow.
So it's almost like a get out of here.
Wow.
Literally the day I moved, it stopped.
That's crazy that people would do that.
It is what it is.
I mean, that's like,
You know, it kind of pisses you off,
yeah.
but then you're kind of like, But, you know, sick people exist, man. Sick people
Yeah.
exist. But the way I look at it is this. Why? Why the hatred and why the dislike? At the end of the day, well, the only model of comparison they have to is terrorists.
Yeah.
They're defining me. They're defining the other millions of people who live in the United States who are Middle Eastern.
Right.
I'm just about sick of it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So now, can I go out and educate other people? Sure, I can put out a bunch of YouTube videos and say, hey, this ain't us, but no, but I can educate cops.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Because that ain't the only time. I mean, I even had a guy come after me that took me a year and a half to clear my name because he didn't feel like I should be a cop nor teach cops because I'm a goat herder.
Wow.
Go as far as, you know, trying to get the system file charges on me
Wow.
for saving another officer's life.
That's
You know,
crazy.
this is the kind of shit that exists when you have people with a badge and a gun. They're going to use their position because they're bigots. Now, to be fair, is that everybody? No.
Right.
I've trained probably 40, 50, 60,000 cops. I've only encountered that probably less than a handful of times.
Yeah.
You can't really say that, so it's not a systemic problem.
Yeah.
It's 2 or 3 bigots, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know if the training would help them. But you know what? We do the training, 1,000, 2,000 people. At least they understand, hey, we got normal people, we got terrorists.
Yeah.
But in order to pick out the terrorists, I got to know what the norm is,
Right.
right? I got to know the norm to pick out the anomaly.
Right.
So that's what I'm doing. That's what this whole class is about. For me to pick out the anomaly in the terrorists
Yeah.
and let me know what the norm is. And just like I explained, was it this morning or yesterday in the class, it's like a polygraph test. For you to pick out the deception, when you take a polygraph, the first 10 questions lays the baseline
Right.
of that person.
Right.
Well, for you to pick out a terrorist, you got to understand the baseline of someone who practices the faith.
Right.
And if you don't have that baseline, how are you supposed to pick out the anomaly?
Yeah. And I mean, I can see the benefit and the value of having street cops know this kind of stuff, but you could probably put a little bit better as to what the value of this kind of information could be to the, you know, just everyday cop that's out there on the streets.
Well, of course. I mean, here's the thing. You have a threat in the United States with people who want to kill Americans. There's no freaking doubt.
Yeah.
Okay? And the way the system has been going for the last several years, and the foreign intelligence and even the, you know, terrorist groups have infiltrated from lowest level to the highest level. You know, and I'm not talking about politics. I'm talking about just people that want to do harm to the Western society. The people who come in contact with these people who are sick are the patrol guys.
Yeah.
It's not the FBI. It's not the Homeland Security. They don't make traffic stops. They don't answer calls. They're not just stopping at the gas station to get something to eat. They're not just helping somebody change a flat tire. It's the SROs in the colleges, in the schools, right? It's people who are constantly in contact with the general public, right? If they don't understand the norm, how are they supposed to pick out the anomaly? And the Middle Eastern community, the Muslim community, are the ones who know who the radicalized people are. But because of incidents like this that I've had to deal with even within, now you've got those people don't want to deal with the cops because they're like, well, shit, if I go over there and try to help the cops, they're bigots. They're going to target me.
Right.
Right? And I don't blame them.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So what I'm trying to do is bridge the gap. train the cops, and say, hey, why don't we work together? Because neither one of us want these extremists,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
The Middle Eastern community is like, hey, they don't represent us. The cops is like, hey, we got to get rid of them. Hey, why don't we work together? Because we need to get rid of them. They're a menace to society.
Yeah.
Period. And that's the end goal. I can't do the general public. Sure, I could probably throw some YouTube videos out there, but you know, you always get those trolls that want to trash talk.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Their Fortnite finishes updating, and now they got to say something.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And then, but what is that going to do? But if I can train cops, that could save lives.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
You know, speaking of that, you know, we talked about this previously. I think on September 9th of 2001, one of the guys involved in the 9/11 attacks was pulled over on a traffic stop.
He was, yep.
And, you know, the officer didn't have any idea, obviously, didn't have any of the knowledge of the things that you teach in this class,
Right.
right? But if he would have, just to think about the ripple effects that him being able to spot some radical ideology, or to know the right questions to ask, or know what to look for when he contacted that guy, the ripple effects that could have had on the next 20 years
Oh, of course.
is crazy.
Yeah, you're talking about Ziad Jarrah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Maryland State Troopers stopped Ziad Jarrah.
Yeah.
On, as a matter of fact, I got that video. We'll watch that tomorrow.
Yeah.
So imagine if that trooper, and not of the fault of his own, because that's something that nobody ever thought about,
Yeah.
right? But at this point, this is not something that administrators don't need to be thinking about. They need to be thinking about it, and they need to be doing something about it.
Yeah.
Okay? Is the fact that if he knew not only what to ask, but what to look for. When I'm saying look, I don't mean physically. I'm talking ideologically,
Right.
which, as you saw today, there's a lot that goes into this. Just a simple identification of an ideology could have stopped that entire attack.
Right.
And if it would have stopped that entire attack, not only the nearly 4,000 people's lives that were lost on that day, but the thousands of soldiers that were killed overseas, and the perpetual wars that is created overseas, and the hundreds of thousands of innocent Middle Easterners that have been caught in the freaking crossfire along the way,
Right.
which ultimately has led to what groups like ISIS and Al-Qaeda and Taliban and IRGC and Hamas and Hezbollah use to perpetuate the hatred towards the United States.
Right.
Because we talked about that today. All of these events are constantly used to just drum up more hate towards the United States.
Right.
Literally one traffic stop and asking the right questions would have stopped this whole process.
Yeah, for sure.
And that's my goal.
Yeah.
It could happen.
Yeah. So I think it's a class that everyone needs to go to. If you have a badge and a gun, you need to go to this class. So if there's anybody watching this that's interested in coming to the class, where would they go to find information, schedules, that kind of stuff?
Yeah, so everything can be found on myletraining.com.
Okay.
All right, and as a matter of fact, not only I have the tuition-based classes, I'll even do, I have a special class that I do for like departments,
Uh-huh.
where I know budget is like a huge deal, where I can go in, if the department wants to do a whole training for like, let's say a department with like 300 people, you know, because, you know, budgets are an issue, right? It's a whole lot easier to come in, do 4 classes back to back, 4 10-hour days, because there's a lot of information. You guys sat in it today,
Yeah.
and we just covered 8 hours, because this is a 3-day class. But obviously, this is kind of like a hybrid between a drug interdiction and a terrorism interdiction. But for the actual one that talks about ideology, it's a full 10-hour class, right? And it's not a 10 hours where we're just going to hem-haw around for 5 hours and then we're going to take 5 breaks, you know, 5 hours of breaks. It's literally 10 hours,
Yeah.
45-minute lunch, and you got to go to the bathroom. You get up and go to the bathroom the rest of the time. You know, we may take like 3 breaks because there's so much information. So, you know, you take, you know, 4 10-hour days, and do like a special rate where I go into a department, they can break everybody up into 4 days and do like an in-house training for everybody.
Right.
But it's something where, I mean, I'm sure, with this class, everybody knows, we're not going to name them individually, but we've got intelligence, we've got military, we've got 3-letter agencies, all the way from ATF, FBI, Homeland Security, DEA. We've got everybody in here.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because this is something that's needed. And it's not one of those deals where, oh, well, it's the Fed's job.
Right.
Yeah, the Feds can't do this.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? They can't.
Yeah. Like you said earlier, they're not out there making traffic stops and contacting people.
Yeah, they're not answering family violence calls. They're not going to answer a loud music call or, a burglary report where the next door neighbor comes out of the door and all of a sudden you recognize and you look inside and you see an ISIS flag inside the door.
Yeah.
FBI is not answering a call somewhere because there was a 911 hang-up.
Yeah.
Right? So this is something that law enforcement in the United States needs to get with the program.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Well, I've thoroughly enjoyed the last 2 days. We got 1 day left. I'm looking forward to that as well. So if you guys are interested, I'll put a link to the website in the description of the video. And as always, Sean, I enjoyed the time together. I'm sure we'll do this again, and we'll catch up on some more stuff that's going on in the country and the world. And anyways, I appreciate you coming on today. I know it's been a long day.
Thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, man, for sure. So, all right, guys, until next time, we'll see you down the road on Texas Narcos. Thank you for tuning into this episode of Texas Narcos Podcast. We hope you enjoyed it. Remember to hit that like button, subscribe to our channel, share our podcast with your friends and family. You can find Texas Narcos Podcast on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and iHeartRadio. Your continued support helps us to bring you stories like the one you just heard. Thank you, God bless, and we'll see you down the road on Texas Narcos.